Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our youth-led conversation with the 6 candidates running to be Boston's next mayor. My name is Felicia Gans, and I am a digital producer and reporter for our education team at the Boston Globe called The Great Divide. Our team focuses on race, class, and opportunity in the state's public schools, especially BPS. To follow The Great Divide's coverage and to get in touch with our reporters, visit us at globe.com/thegreatdivide. We'll also send out an email after today's event with details about how to follow us on social media and how to sign up for our free weekly newsletter that I write. Through our reporting, we always aim to put students and families' voices at the center of the conversation. That's why we're thrilled to be co-sponsoring today's event with the Boston Debate League. Next, I'll be turning it over to Jackney Joseph, the Boston Debate League's Director of External Affairs.
Hello, thank you for joining us tonight. The Boston Debate League's mission is to integrate argumentation and competitive debate into Boston, Chelsea, and Somerville public schools to develop critical thinkers ready for college, career, and engagement with the world around them. We serve over 700 students a year in the after-school debate program and impact thousands more by providing professional development to teachers through debate-inspired classrooms. The BDL seeks to transform the classroom into a place where students are not just critical thinkers, but become agents of their own learning and are empowered to use their voice and make change. We're thrilled to be partnering in today's forum with the Boston Globe. We appreciate the rapid and positive response from all the candidates to make sure to hear questions directly from the young people of our city. But we are even more excited to elevate the voices of young people. And today we're joined by 2 BDL students who will lead this conversation, Kellen Funes and Ira Mercer.
Hi everyone, my name is Kellen Funes and I am a rising senior at Boston International Newcomers Academy. I moved to the United States from El Salvador in 2019. I have been a member of the Boston Debate League since my sophomore year when I joined in my school's debate team. I first started as a novice English debater and moved up to junior varsity in the same year. This last season, I debated in varsity Spanish and I ended the season as the #1 Spanish debater. I am really excited and honored to be here representing the youth voice in the Boston area and getting to know more about the candidates and their ideas. The reason why I choose to be here today is because I truly believe that the youth voice should be heard, that youth interest in politics and social issues should be something to take into account. Because at the end of the day, we are not far from being the ones voting and being active citizens in our society. And now I pass it over to my peer, Ira, to introduce herself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ira Mercer, and I'm now technically a senior at the Henderson Inclusion School. I've been debating since the 8th grade with the Boston Debate League. I'm also the captain of my school's debate team. When I hear the word debate, I think not just about proving my point, but speaking up for issues that are dear to me. Speaking up for those whose voices have been silenced and are silenced, along with just making sure that our voices are heard in the issues in today's society. The purpose of me being here is not just to show my face, but to get student voices, questions, and concern out there. Student voice is one of my biggest outlets for my activism because our voice, the same voice that tends to get shut down, put down, matters. Many policies directly impact us, and it's important for our voices to be heard. Now I'm going to pass it back to Kelly.
Once again, thank you everyone to joining us today. Now, we'd like to welcome the mayoral candidates who are joining us this afternoon. They are John Barros, Andrea Campbell, Anissa, Sabi, George, Kim Janney, John Santiago, and Michelle Wu. Major Jenny had a conflict this afternoon and cannot join us right now, but she will be with us soon.
Now we'd like to invite each candidate to give a 1-minute opening statement. We'll begin first with John Barros, followed by Andrea Campbell, Anissa Sabi George, Kim Janney, John Santiago, and Michelle Wu.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is John Barrows, and I'm really excited to be here today for this forum. Youth development is important. Youth voices are important. So I want to thank the Boston Globe and the Boston Debate League for putting on this forum. I want to thank the two of you, Kellen and Shira. Make sure I say your name right, Shira, for your facilitation and for your leadership this afternoon. I've been engaged in my community and participating in my neighborhood since I've been a young person. I know what it means to participate as a young person. I know what it means to lead and try to lead as a young person and do it with your colleagues. As mayor, I'll bring my life's experience and all that I remember and that I try to live out as an adult in supporting youth development, our youth leaders, and our youth voice throughout the city. Thank you. I think I kept it to that minute.
Next, we'll have Andrea Campbell.
Thank you, Kellen, and thank you, Zyra. And you guys are representing two of the schools, BPS schools in my district. So I am really honored to be here with you ladies. Thank you, of course, to the Globe and Boston Debate League for putting on this forum to talk about pressing issues related to education, but also other issues that you guys might care about. So obviously I'm Andrea Campbell. I'm currently on the council. I've been on the council for the last 6 years, representing largely Dorchester, Mattapan, a little bit of Jamaica Plain and Rosendale. Have worked on a whole host of issues, working to improve our Boston public schools, but so many issues, always with the goal of making sure that the systems that provide these services to our families, to our students, are transparent, that they are equitable and accountable to the folks we have the privilege of serving in the city of Boston. My entire life has been shaped by this city. I was born and raised here. I grew up in Roxbury in the South End. I'm a BPS kid from pre-K to the 12th grade, went to Princeton University and then UCLA for law school, but then came back and started my legal career.
That's time.
Oh, great. Well, put a timer on at some point. I'll just say thank you guys for having me. Really happy to be here. And I'll look for the timer in the next round, but really honored to be here to share my thoughts and to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Anissa Sabi George.
Thank you very much for having me here today and for inviting me not just today to the forum, but to your debates over the last few years and some of your debate meetings. As a mom, as a small business owner, as a former Boston Public Schools teacher, and a BPS grad, as well as a Boston City Councilor at large, I believe I am the right leader for this city at this moment. Conversations like this one we'll have today make me think of my experiences growing up here in the city of Boston and about my young sons, my teenagers who are in high school here in Boston. I want them to be able to engage in this work, live their lives where they grew up and have the experiences I have had as a young person. We want to make sure that the next generation can continue to call Boston home, and we can't just recover from COVID. We need to have embrace the responsibility and have the opportunity to reimagine and rebuild a more equitable Boston for all. I'm determined to do that and to lead that as your mayor going forward. Thank you this afternoon for having us.
Thank you. Next up, we have John Santiago.
Great. Well, thank you to the Boston Debate League and the Globe for inviting us to this important forum. Thank you to Zyra and Kellen for moderating it. It's really inspiring to be here with so many young people who are getting engaged in the political process, because it exemplifies exactly what we need. And that's a city where our policies, our platforms, and our future is really informed and determined by our youth. The past 15 months have been incredibly difficult for us, but particularly for our youth in a time where those adolescent years should really be about growth and being connected to supportive environments and filled with hope and future, hope for the future. But instead, it's one that it's been quite the opposite. And so for me, my work with youth has been very personal. I got my start in public service organizing youth as a Peace Corps volunteer working in the Dominican Republic, organizing Dominican and Haitian youth. And I'll be honest with you, I mean, they taught me much more about life than I knew, that I taught them. And that's what inspired me to devote my life to career in public service. as a Peace Corps volunteer, but also as a captain in the Army, as an ER doctor who still works the overnight shift at Boston Medical Center, and as a state representative here in the South End parts of Roxbury for the past couple of years. So really honored to partake in this debate today, and looking forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least is Michelle.
Thank you so much. I'll echo the deep gratitude and thanks to the Boston Debate League and the Globe for convening us today to get the chance to really dive in on the important issues in this important moment. We have all lived through so much over this last 16 months. Our young people have borne so much of the trauma of this pandemic, particularly young people of color in the city. And so I'm coming into this space as someone who has lived the challenges and the barriers of systems created by our government for a long time. I'm the daughter of immigrants. My parents arrived in this country not speaking English, nothing in their pockets. And I ended up raising my sisters after my mom began to struggle with very serious mental health challenges. Today, I'm raising my two boys who are 6 and 3 in the Boston Public Schools and in our incredible city. And so we're living the challenges. I have a track record of delivering and taking on the big challenges and knowing that we can get anything done in Boston if we build coalitions and organize from the grassroots. So I'm proud to run the campaign to do that and then to deliver change in office. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, candidates, for all those short but meaningful introductions. And now in this next part of the forum, each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to these following questions. And my peer Syra is going to present the first question.
Hello. The first question is, how do you plan to provide more resources, such as new books, access to free tutoring, and more for students in low-income public schools?
The order will be the same order as you did in the presentation. So we will start with John Barris, and then Andrea Campbell, Anissa, Sabi George, and then John Santiago and Michelle Wu. That will be the order. Thank you.
Thank you, Kellen. Really appreciate it. Making sure that our youth have what they need in schools is really critical. And so first and foremost, it starts by making sure that we are fully funded, that our schools are fully funded, and our classrooms have what it need, and our young people have what it need. And then we need to go beyond that and creating the opportunities for youth to engage in more meaningful ways, in ways that are more innovative. And so I think young people should in fact be in conversations with the school leaders about what they need, and should begin to have conversations about what curriculums look like. We know that the schools where the students are more active and take more part in planning the curriculum and planning programming and planning how that actually is implemented, we have more success, we have more participation, and we have better achievement. And so as mayor, I'll make sure that we have a more participatory school that is fully funded.
Thank you for that answer. And following to that, Andrea Campbell is going to answer to the question.
Thank you, and I'm setting my timer. So this issue is near and dear. I attended 5 BPS schools. All of them were excellent, including Boston Latin School, and had everything you can imagine: sports, after-school programs, mock trial, everything. And most of those programs that I was afforded was free. The same wasn't true for my twin brother, Andre, who passed away while in the custody of the Department of Correction when he was only 29 years old. And this is in a state prison setting. He went to schools that did not have the same resources and opportunities. So when I got to the council, I pushed for every school to have the resources they need. I put out a report. Now it's nearly 3 years old. And this was before I was a candidate for mayor, talking about just how we could create greater equity. Right now, we have federal dollars that are pouring into our city. Nearly $400 million will go to the city of Boston. I've been pushing for transparency with respect to those dollars. I also recently launched an idea that I'm calling student acceleration accounts, which actually allows students and their families to take a percentage of those resources and decide where they want that money to go, which is critically important. We talk about youth voice. Well, give them some control over the purse strings, the same for families. If we say we value families, do the same for them. That's the type of leadership I'll continue if I'm blessed to become the next elected mayor in the city of Boston. No child in our district should go without all the resources they need. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Andrea. And now following will be our candidate Anissa.
Thank you for the question. And when we think about the work that is left undone here in the city of Boston, I've led on it on the Boston City Council and will continue to lead on it as mayor of the city. We must make sure that we are creating equitable baseline standards and resources across every school. Today, BPS exists as a system of inequitable schools where families are forced to compete for a seat, for a high quality seat for their child. Due to the extreme variations in the quality of learning opportunities, lack of resources, and inadequate facilities. The school assignment process continues to exacerbate racial and socioeconomic disparities. This work has to be done and has to be done quickly through the leadership of the mayor's office. Through my work on the council, I've worked to make sure that every school has a full-time nurse, and we are working today to make sure that our nurses, our schools, have not just a full-time nurse, but a full-time social worker and social and emotional supports for our kids. We also need to make sure that we are creating a BPS budget that provides equitable funding across all schools, making sure that there is money there for that very strong foundation. And of course, rooted in social and emotional support so that our kids can achieve academically. And then we need to make sure that we have clear academic paths for our kids by making sure that grade configurations make sense and that there are very few transitions for our kids. I've set my own timer and that's my time there.
Thank you, candidate. And the next one will be John Santiago answering the question.
Great. Well, thank you for the question. I think it's an incredibly pivotal one because the message that we are sending to our children, to our students, to our youth across BPS, if they go to a school that is suffering from deferred maintenance, if they go to a school that is lacking resources, is that we don't care about them. We don't care about them nor their education. And I'm very proud that one of the reasons why I ran for public office in the first place 3 years ago was precisely about our education system and the achievement gap that we were seeing all across the Commonwealth at the time. And I'm proud that in my first year in office as a state representative, that we passed an important bill, a once in a lifetime generational bill that was called the Student Opportunity Act, that really sought to address the achievement gap all across the Commonwealth, particularly in our gateway communities, through an increase in funding. And I'm proud that this week, actually, the House of Representatives is going to vote again on the Fair Share Amendment to put it on the ballot, the idea that we can tax the wealthiest among us to fund some of the most important priorities, first and foremost, education. So with the Student Opportunity Act, the Fair Amendment coming up, and the fact that we have hundreds of millions of federal dollars coming in, there's going to be resources. But the question is that we have to ask ourselves is how are we going to target our most needy students, our most vulnerable students, students like myself. I was one of those poor Latino kids who needed some of the most help. And I think for me, that's about how do we address COVID learning loss? How do we make sure that we begin to address the mental health crisis that has already was exposed and exacerbated in COVID? For me, it's about investing in summer programs, the ability for some students to retake a grade if they would like, early college programs, and creating union pipelines and career pathways for some of our students who need it the most. I'm committed to doing that as next mayor of Boston, but it's going to require some political courage. And I've exhibited that, and I'll do that as the mayor.
Thank you, candidate John, for that answer. And now the following to answer the question will be our candidate Michelle Wu.
Thank you very much. I was just thinking about this earlier this morning, the burden that we put on each individual student and their families to try to fill in the gaps that our school system leaves. I was getting my kids ready for school this morning, really worried, really anxious about the time that they were going to have today with over 90 degrees of heat, so many messages coming in from school and the teachers saying, please make sure your child is dressed as coolly as possible. Please pack extra water, because we know that our buildings, our schools, our classrooms are not equipped right now across the board to take care of all of their needs. When we're asking parents to make sure that there's enough water because we don't have safe drinking water in all of our schools, when we're asking parents and families to make sure that that they're donating so we can buy basic supplies such as books and academic supports, we've already failed. And so this is about making sure we're hitting foundation budget, that baseline for every single school that our families and our young people deserve. I've spent time as a parent now over the last decade involved in BPS, raising my sisters through middle school and high school, and now starting over with my 2 young boys. And as a city councilor, I've visited every single Boston Public High School to see firsthand the huge gaps and disparities that we tolerate in our district. I want us to get to the point where we are funding a whole child education, not just the basics of books and academics, but art, sports, the facilities, and the programming that our kids deserve.
All right, thank you so much for those amazing answers for the question. And we are just honored to have our candidate, Kim Jenny, just joining us. So we're going to give 1 minute for introductions, and then we're going to present the question number 2, and then each candidate will have 90 seconds to do their answer as well. So candidate Kim, please introduce yourself. You have 1 minute.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? I apologize for being late. I am grateful for the opportunity to be here. I certainly want to thank the Boston Debate League. I've had a wonderful opportunities to visit with you and speak with you in the past, and grateful for your leadership here. I want to thank the moderators. My name is Kim Janey, and I am the 55th mayor of Boston. I am grateful for the opportunity to lead and serve as someone who is a mom to a BPS graduate, someone who is a grandmother, someone who has dedicated her entire career to child advocacy and fighting for our young people and their opportunities in our schools and beyond our schools. This is critically important. Not because of some future job you may hold or being a future leader somewhere down the road, but because of who you are right now, and that you are valued and you deserve every opportunity to succeed in life and to be all that you can be. I'm not sure where the timer is. Is it in the chat here? I just want to, I guess, extend my gratitude to you for your leadership and holding this important conversation. Certainly support all that you do. Will continue to advocate for you as your mayor, and I'm grateful to participate. I do have to apologize because I will have to get back to some other commitments that I have. So
that's okay. Thank you so much for that introduction. That was time. Thank you, candidate and Major Kim Jenny. Now I'm going to present the question number 2, and we are also going to be pasting it in the chat so you will see it and don't forget it. The question is, how would you ensure that teacher and student voices are part of decision making on issues that impact them? And we are going to be following the same order as we did. So we will start with John Barris. Thank you.
Thank you. When I was younger, at the age of 17, I wanted to be part of the decision-making of the organization that I was a youth member of. And so I ran for the board of the directors of the Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative, and I won that seat. And it was an important experience for me, but it was also an important voice for the board. As mayor, I'll make sure that the youth have a voice and a vote on the school committee. It's critical. And then with that vote, that will make it a tie. And so we'll have to add a second youth seat, just like we did at DSNI, because in fact we need to have a tiebreaker, but we also need to have multiple youth voices. And then we need to make sure that the young people are part of every task force and important committees that are discussing any policies related to schools. It's critical. It is critical that we have youth who are the primary stakeholders in our school, and families involved. And so the young people will need to be part of the task force, the ELL task force. They'll need to be part of the budget conversations. They'll need to be part of school time and the conversations around curriculum. Anything that has to do with youth life at BPS, they should be part of the conversation. But probably the most important conversation today is the conversation on what organizations are supporting our youth at BPS. Young people's voices and their experiences need to be taken very seriously as we do an audit of BPS. And as mayor, I would make sure that we move on that audit to make sure that the young people are surveyed, questioned, and that their responses and experiences are what guides BPS's decisions on who is supporting young people and students at BPS. We cannot have a situation where young people are feeling not supported or even worse, abandoned. And so youth voice need to be part of the official governance, need to be part of the everyday consultation of what should happen at BPS. And as mayor, I'll make that happen.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Andrea Canberra.
Thank you for the question. It's critically important. And so I have actually been centering, whether it's students, families, educators, in my work around education policy reform for years. I started my legal career actually working for a local nonprofit in Roxbury, representing students and families in education cases, school discipline, special needs cases, and not just involving Boston Public Schools, also METCO students or charter school students or students that were in detention, in youth detention, or foster students. So there are a whole range of students that I've engaged with over the years to make sure that they got everything they were entitled to in terms of education delivery from various systems. That has never changed. So as a counselor, I have worked in partnership with educators, students at the schools within my district. Obviously, you two are at two of my schools in my district that do that really well. Going forward, that would never change. If anything, it's pushing the system to also include the youth that feel left behind or who are unseen, who are not getting the educational services they deserve and are entitled to. Our English learners, our special needs students, of course, those who are in DYS facilities, so many others. In the plan that I put out 3 years ago, my most recent education plan builds upon that work. And frankly, it talks about centering the voices of all of these stakeholders in everything we do. The plan that I developed 3 years ago took 6 months to put together. It centered all of these voices. The most recent plan has done the same, and you don't want to hear that noise. The most recent plan has done the same. That won't change going forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Up next, we have Anissa Sabi George.
Thank you for that question, because I think it's so critically important when we think about the work of our city that we are centering youth voices, and in particular when it relates to as it relates to our schools, that we're also centering the voices of our educators, our school communities, and certainly our families. I am a former member as a young person of the Boston Student Advisory Council, and it is in fact where I found my own voice and my interest in local government, municipal government. I led the work and continue to lead the work on the City Council today to make sure that the student member of the Boston School Committee has not just the right to vote in matters before the school committee, but also can receive the stipend that the other members of the Boston School Committee receive. I continue to do that work today. As mayor of the city of Boston, I will be engaged in the work of BSAC and look forward to making sure that our kids are involved in more than just conversations around education. As a member of the City Council, we've been working on a City Council Youth Council to really complement the work of the Mayor's Youth Council, and the City Council Youth Council will do that and be more involved than just issues of education. They should be engaged in conversations around the climate, around our climate, around transit, around our city's budget, around public health, around public safety. And as mayor, in partnership with the Mayor's Youth Council, I will work to ensure that the appropriate investments are made, and that I am also committed to meeting quarterly at the very least with the Mayor's Youth Council and its leadership.
Thank you so much. Up next, we have Michelle Wu.
I don't want to skip Rep Santiago. I'm happy to go if it's my turn. But.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, up next is John Santiago.
Thank you, Councilor Wu. Look, you're absolutely right. I mean, this has to be the paradigm shift that we have to take in Boston in the age of 2021. One that we have waited and that we have stalled, but that needs to be at the center of everything we do when it comes to BPS, when it comes to youth, when it comes to rebuilding Boston back stronger than ever. And that starts with a framework that is focused on listening, cherishing the voices, and respecting the voices of our youth, particularly our BPS students. And that was a lesson that I learned, as a young person trying to work with youth and organizing youth. As I said in my opening remarks, my first job as an organizer was to work with youth, and they taught me more about life than I knew. They taught me how to organize people, but they taught me how to get projects done. And it started by listening. And I strongly believe in the idea that we have 2 ears and one mouth. It's a lesson I take with me to Beacon Hill every day, but it's the same one I use in the hospital when I'm treating patients. It starts with listening. And if we're not having students engage in a very real way, then we're losing the battle. So I'm definitely committed 110% now to making sure that the school committee has a voting member from our youth, and that they have a stipend and they have the resources that they're entitled to engage in the rigorous debate and to really share the opinions and the concerns of their fellow students, But we can't also forget about the role that their families play and that their parents play. They have to be engaged, and they have to be engaged in a way that is culturally competent, that is language accessible, because the fact of the matter is that that's not happening right now. And we need parents to get more engaged, because that's going to improve the outcomes of their students. And so supporting parents, making sure that we have a guaranteed staffing ratios in the city of Boston, capping, is that time there? Sorry.
You can finish that sentence.
Well, I was just going to say the importance of making sure that staff have the support resources to do the job that they need to do, because that is the most important job that we're investing in, and we need to make sure that we're doing it appropriately.
Thank you so much. Up next, you have Michelle.
Thank you. We need to reach for transformational change across so many policy areas in our city. And to do that, we have to listen to the experts, our residents, our folks who are on the ground living the impacts every day. And when it comes to our school system in particular, teachers, young people, families, school leaders even have been excluded from having meaningful input. You can see it when you go on any school committee meeting, that for public testimony to occur, sometimes residents are having to wait until 11 p.m. midnight just to be heard, hoping that the interpretation is still hanging on. Until then, we need to change the structures to remove barriers for input all around. That includes changing the governance structure of our school committee so that there's direct democratic accountability. As mayor, I'll ensure that we are collecting that feedback and incorporating it, building into the very structures of how we make decisions, not just in the school department, but across every department. I've been proud to champion a different structure for our planning department, which is the foundation that we're deciding where housing can go, where our schools are going, whether we're prepared for climate. On all these areas, there are immediate steps that Boston should be taking to lean on, listen to, and bake into our very structures the very valuable feedback that our families and residents and experts, those living the impacts, are seeing on the ground.
Thank you so much. Up next, we have Kim Janey.
Thank you. Thank you again. And so, as I mentioned in my opening, with young people at Mass Advocates for Truth, put our young people front and center in that work, because they were the ones impacted by education policy. Not just our young people, but their parents, our educators, making sure that there was shared decision-making and pushing for that, because that is the right thing to do. And so whether working with BSAC, whether working with Young People's Project, whether working with Project Hip Hop, or so many other empowerment, so many other youth organizations, it was about putting their voices front and center. As I was up to my swearing in, I had a transition committee, and it was very important to me to have young people as part of these subcommittees shaping that work. And so that is what I did. Certainly as mayor, creating a children's cabinet, making sure that the youth council, the mayor's office youth council is well represented with young people. This is the work. Again, you guys are not leaders of tomorrow, you guys are leaders of today. And so I've been a champion, will continue to be a champion to center the voice of our young people in all that we do, whether that is on school site councils, whether that is on the Boston School Committee, making sure that there are more than one student, as Mr. Barrow said, and that they are voting members. That is critically important. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for your responses. Now on to the next question. How will you expand the footprint for minority my English is really bad today. On to the next question. How will you expand the footprint for minority interpreters in Boston, especially young entrepreneurs who are eager for new opportunities.
We're going to be following the same order. So we're going to be starting with John Barris.
Thank you very much. Yeah, great question. We need to make sure that entrepreneurship and the sense of business and being engaged in our economy starts really, really early. It first starts with our youth jobs, and our youth jobs need to be more than just distractions or pulling youth out of and making sure that they don't get in trouble. Youth jobs need to be about how youth engage in our economy. That's why, as Chief of Economic Development, I help to recruit more employers and more companies in Boston to give youth real opportunities in the workplace and give them an opportunity to go and do different jobs that they were doing. As Executive Director of DS&I, I worked very hard at making sure the young people in my neighborhood had opportunities that they can build skills in. And some of those opportunities were starting new ventures and making sure that they had the training to do business plans and then the opportunity to pitch those business plans and get funding for it. This is the work that we need to continue to do in Boston and make sure that Boston youth understand our economy, have the concept and the skills that they can put together in a presentation, and then understand the art of pitching so that they can get in front of the venture capitalist community in Boston, that they can get in front of the banks and get in front of those who are ready to provide capital for young people. As mayor, I would in fact start a fund for Boston youth entrepreneurs to make sure that there will always be capital to fund amazing ideas from our young people.
Awesome, thank you so much. And next on the stage will be our candidate, Andrea Campbell.
Thank you for the question, and it's a critical one, particularly as you see young folks demonstrating and showing their unique entrepreneurial skills, and that comes, whether it's in the biotech world or whether it's in the arts community at large. This is the time to have greater investment. So I really appreciate this question. Number one, I think it starts with Boston Public Schools. There are a lot of schools right now that currently have access to some incredible programming that supports entrepreneurship, training, skill set development, offers mentors, capital to folks who want to start a business right while in Boston Public Schools. But we know that there are many schools that do not have access to those same partnerships. So first, it's making sure that every young person who desires this for themselves and dreams of becoming an entrepreneur in this city has access to those opportunities right within our schools. The second piece is the city of Boston's budget. We're talking about a budget that's nearly $4 billion. And I always stress that to young people in particular. That's a lot of money. That means that's a lot of money to help you reach your dreams. And so the question is, what are we doing with your money? And this is one place that we need to start. Right now, the city of Boston has an abysmal record when it comes to supporting entrepreneurs, especially women and people of color. We can change that. And the last piece is not just looking at our own city budget, but pushing the private sector, the hospitals, the medical institutions, of course, as well as our higher ed institutions to also lead the way in supporting our efforts in creating capital, mentorship, technical assistance for entrepreneurs, and not just making it so an entrepreneur can only do it within their neighborhood of, say, Mattapian, Dorchester, but they have the opportunity to grow their business or whatever they envision across the entire city of Boston. The city of Boston leads the way. We can then push these other stakeholders to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you so much, candidate. And following will be our candidate, Anissa Sabi George.
I know the entrepreneurial spirit of our young people across the city is real. I taught at East Boston High School for 13 years, and one of the courses I taught was entrepreneurship, and worked with hundreds of our young people in helping them build a dream, build a business, and create opportunity for themselves. And it really was an amazing opportunity to see their spirit and their desire for that brighter future, for access to economic opportunity, and to build their own wealth. We have these programs in our schools, and for sure, we need to make sure that every one of our kids has an opportunity to learn about our entrepreneurship, to develop their business acumen, and to understand financial literacy. Financial literacy in particular needs to be a graduation requirement. It is something that our kids desire deeply, and there are some really great state programs and state curriculum that's available for many of our kids. And I often incorporated that into my instruction as part of all of my classes across the board. It's also an opportunity for our community-based organizations to engage with our kids in a different way. We see these entrepreneurship programs made available again in a few spots across our city, and kids thrive with these opportunities and creating selling events and building business plans and thinking about their future is really the greatest gift that we can give our kids. I'm excited to lead on that as mayor of this city.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And following will be our candidate, John Santiago.
Great, thank you for the question. I mean, we have to understand that all the values and the experiences that our students and our immigrant students and our EL students and all of them, what they bring to the table, particularly with respect to languages, as was stated earlier. My father and my family, and my mother and my family members came here from Puerto Rico without speaking much English, and it was because of classes at UMass Boston ESL ones that my mother and family members began to speak English and allowed them to participate in our current economy. So for me, this is personal, and as mayor, I'm 110% dedicated and committed to making sure that we have intentional programs to meet the needs of our entrepreneurship, particularly among minority youth, who bring a whole host of skills. I mean, these are some of the most entrepreneurial people that I've ever dealt with in my entire life. And so as mayor, I'm committed, number one, to implement the seal of biliteracy. So when our English language learners graduate, that they have college credit and that they're ready to start their careers, but we need to be giving students, opportunities in the real world and the business and the job skills to really succeed after school. And that's why, I've supported this in the legislature with millions of dollars going to efforts such as that. But my focus remains on keeping our kids in school, giving them environments to prosper, and providing year-round jobs for them that's really going to impact their careers, and making sure that opportunities from organized labor to to leveraging institutions all across the city of Boston are being a part of the BPS curriculum, and that they're partnering and that they're supporting these children in their endeavors to become this next generation's future entrepreneurs.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And just for the sake of time, with our Major Kim Janae here present, we are going to have her next for answering the question. I don't know if that's okay, candidate Michelle. Okay, awesome. So candidate and Major Kim Janae, you have 90 seconds now to answer the question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And let me thank Councilor Wu for her graciousness and allowing me to to come and be here with you. So I appreciate you letting me come in and to answer these questions and engage. This is critically important. And I think there are a lot of opportunities before us. I've had the distinct honor of serving as a judge several times for different showcases with Build, which is an entrepreneur, young people tap into their own desires as young entrepreneurs. And so I have seen incredible projects come from these showcases. I mean, projects that, have the ability to be on, what's the show with the Shark Tank? Shark Tank. I mean, just incredible. And we can do much more of that, I think, in our schools and with youth programs throughout the city of Boston. Within our schools, we have a gym in Madison Park Development Corp, where young people are learning trades in cosmetology. I was just there last week and talked to young people and how they are already entrepreneurs. They are doing hair, they're learning how to do hair. In the trades, there's work happening in the trades there. I think we can continue to invest in Madison as another pathway for our young people to tap in. And I think all across whatever school you attend, it doesn't have to be Madison, all of our young people should be learning about entrepreneurship. All of our young people should be learning about financial literacy. All of our young people should be learning life skills like learning how to swim and CPR. These are life skills. And so it is very, very important. I see that my time is up. I want to again thank you all. Thank you to the candidates here. Thank you again to the moderators. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you.
Thank you so much for your presence today, Major and Candidate Kim. I don't know if you still have time or you will have to let go. So we are going to continue, and to answer this question, we have Michelle Wu to answer now. Thank you.
Thank you, Kellen. When we make it hard for our residents and entrepreneurs to get their businesses open, the entire city is missing out. And we see that reflected in Boston's racial wealth gap, right, one of the biggest anywhere in the country. We see it reflected in the stories of so many small business owners who have reached out to my office saying how hard it is, because Boston often has a culture of no, right? We ask entrepreneurs to prove themselves in so many ways and jump through hoop after hoop. I know what that feels like. I'm a former small business owner myself and have spent a lot of time in city government trying to simplify, clarify, and connect our entrepreneurs to that opportunity. And it makes a world of difference. So we need to start first, and especially talking about young entrepreneurs, start first with connecting our young people, our students, to the workforce right here in Boston. We need a robust, strengthened youth jobs program. Right now, it's been shrinking over the last couple of years in the age range and the number of slots. This needs to be the first place that our young people are guaranteed a slot, are able to learn, earn income, and get their pathway started and becoming entrepreneurs. Second, we have to use the city money that we are spending to fulfill that promise as well. Investing in businesses owned by people of color. I'm proud to have written legislation on this and passed it to make sure that Boston is holding ourselves accountable. And then we need to take advantage of this moment. There are so many vacancies across the city. Let's ensure that we are filling them in a way that fulfills our promise and closes the racial wealth gap too.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you all the candidates for those answers. Now we are going to continue with question number 4, which is, how will you work to ensure more Boston students graduate fully ready for college or post-secondary programs? We are going to be following the same order. So we'll be just starting John Barris right now. You have 90 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just hit that timer because it's helpful for me. It is important that Boston fully implements the vote that we just took at the school committee to make sure that we are providing the mass core curriculum to all of our students. It's critical. It's critical that we position all of our students that are looking to go to college or university or even any post high school pathway, that they have the experience and that they've taken the curriculum that has been stated as the curriculum that should be taken for students looking to go to the next step. We also need to formally adopt the college, career, and life readiness framework citywide, with students, families, educators, and out-of-time providers, among others, creating learning tools to activate it. We need to coordinate it and make sure that everybody is doing the same and that our students are getting supports in school and out-of-school programs in the same way.
Thank you so much.
30 seconds. I don't know if you want to use it or just leave it like that.
Oh, I thought that was time. Yeah, I will use it. I mean, I think it's critical when you start to think about the pathways that we have in the city of Boston. We need to invest in both internships and externships, because many of our young people tell us and they give us feedback about the fact that not everybody wants to go to college. B, people that aren't sure what they want to do, right? And so we need multiple pathways. But the way to allow young people to make those decisions, now it's time. Thank you, Kellen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Up next, you have Andrea Campbell.
Thank you guys for the question, because this is a major question. We know, I think it's now 6 out of 10 students who graduate from BPS won't graduate from college. And so clearly that tells me we have significant work to do in the district. It starts from the beginning. I'm a mother of 2 boys. I have a 17-month-old and a 3-year-old. Dropped them both off today at a wonderful Latina family childcare provider. We know universal pre-K is essential and universal childcare is essential. And I define that as birth to 5 years old. And right now in the city of Boston, we do not have that. There has to be a way, and I know there's a way, to make sure that every family in the city of Boston has access to affordable, high quality, universal pre-K and childcare in this city. And it's involving not just supporting the child, but supporting the parent, making sure they have all the resources they need. And that was included in my report 3 years ago. And frankly, one of the reasons I jumped into this mayor's race was because of the inaction with respect to universal pre-K. The second is, yes, high expectations. Adopting Mass Core is really important. Making sure that all of our young people have an excellent elementary school experience, an excellent middle school experience, and holding all stakeholders accountable that they are getting all of the basics before they are moved on to the next grade. It's also important that we think about the pathways for our young people. Not everyone's going to go to college, and that's okay. We should be able to create a whole host of pathways for our families through high schools. In this summer in particular, we need to make sure that we are helping with the learning disruption. And I've held several council hearings on this very topic, ways to make sure every family has access to a tutor and our young people have access to activities this summer to really respond to the mental health challenges and the learning disruption that happened with COVID. Really important as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Up next, we have John Santiago.
Great. Well, thank you. First and foremost, we need universal pre-K, and I'm committed to getting that in my first 4 years in office. But beyond pre-K, we need to be making sure that youth are prepared throughout their entire BPS career. Every student who wants to go to college, should have the opportunity to start college, but begin their college career in high school. Right now, I would argue that we have too few formal opportunities in the district, right? Restricted to just a handful of high schools. I can think about Charleston High, Madison Park, the Dearborn, the Excel High, but we have about 30 plus different high school options. We need to be offering opportunities across the entire board. We need to be providing a robust early college opportunities throughout the district, and I'm committed to doing that. And I want that to start as soon as their junior year. I'm making sure that youth across BPS can start taking classes, so they can start earning college credit, so they can have the preparation mandatory to go into college and hit it hard from the very beginning. And for those who don't want to go to college, we have to understand that not everyone's made to go to college. I went to college because of a few opportunities that went my way, but a lot of my friends didn't, right? So I want to expand credentialing pathways for them. And that means partnering with our leading industries here in Massachusetts. And for me, that's the biotech industry, that's the green economy that's going to be here. But that's also the important role that organized labor here. Organized labor still remains an important piece of the puzzle to getting towards the middle class and providing for your families and for our future economy in Boston. So I'm committed to making sure that youth throughout the city of Boston, starting from the beginning to the very end, have opportunities to get ahead and create a life and to become the future of the city.
Thank you. Also, sorry for skipping you. Up next, we have Anissa, Asabi, George.
Thank you very much. As a former Boston Public Schools teacher, classroom teacher for 13 years, it's so important that we are making sure that our kids all have not just access to, but have a high quality experience in their classroom, in their seat. In BPS, the lack of district-wide curriculum standards and equitable classroom resources continues to increase disparities across schools and for our kids. Eliminating these disparities in curriculum standards and classroom resources is a critical component for educational equity and for making sure that our kids have access to that high quality, both academic experience, rigorous academic experience, and exposure to enrichments. Ensuring that our students have access both at the early grades, when we think about early ed, when we think about early childcare, as well as elementary education through the high school years. That curriculum is a critical foundation for that high quality education. In addition, we need to make sure that we are supporting our students for lifelong success, including the work that I've led on the Boston City Council around financial literacy, around arts and music, around athletics, around CPR training, around health and wellness and nutrition and cooking and life skills classes. There is so much we need to do to make sure that we are achieving lasting and meaningful success for our kids, and that experience happens in our classrooms across this district. This is how we support our kids through their school years, up until and through and post high school graduation.
Thank you so much. Up next, we have Michelle.
Thank you. This is the city that invented public education. Nearly 400 years ago, Bostonians decided that it would be in everyone's collective best interest for the public good for everyone to chip in and ensure that no child would be forgotten or have barriers to access. And so with that legacy, and with the resources that Boston has today, surrounded by some of the best universities anywhere in the world, the strongest opportunities anywhere in the world, we need to make sure that we are not leaving any child with barriers before that every single one of our seats within Boston Public Schools, from universal pre-K all the way through graduation, is high quality, is rigorous, is supported, and reflects the full resources that the city has to offer. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this as a parent and legal guardian in the system for a decade now, and also going around and visiting every single Boston Public High School to meet with school leaders, students, and teachers to hear what the issues are. The plan that I put out represents 4 big areas. 1, to start earlier, truly close the gap for universal pre-K. 2, ensure that we are having a whole child approach, whole community approach, serving the entire child. 3, fix our facilities. It is unacceptable, the state of the buildings that some of our students have to walk into, and that has a clear impact on learning. And last but not least, vocational education to truly connect all the resources in the city to our school system.
Thank you so much, especially all the answers that you guys gave were truly amazing. So the next and last question is, how do you feel about Boston Public Schools having 3 exam schools? How do you believe this impacts the rest of BPS? Also, we're also going to be changing up the order a little bit. First is going to be John Santiago, followed by Michelle Wu, Anissa Sabi George, John Barros, then Andrea Campbell.
Hello? Can you hear me? Is this?
Oh, now you muted yourself. Candidate John.
Sorry, gotcha.
Yes, you
Sorry
have
about
90 seconds, starting
Great.
the timer now.
Oh, thank you very much. It's clear to everyone that we need to take a hard look at our exam school admissions process. As for me, as a Latino kid growing up, in the city for a number of years, education was my lifeline, right? I'm sure there are families all across the city of Boston that are dying to get their kids in exam schools, and that, we want to get those schools as diverse as possible. And look, the temporary plan was put in place, and it was an important thing to do given the situation with COVID, right? I think right now that we need to honor and cherish the exam school and the process that we have there. Those are some of the beacons of education across the city and across this entire state, and very much committed to making sure that every kid in the city of Boston has an opportunity to go there. I do have some concerns with respect to the process moving forward. I do think the zip code system right now has the potential to harm children that I'm surrounded by. I live in a situation in the South End where it's a neighborhood that's been gentrified, that's changed so much, right? But there are still less affluent families that are surrounded by me. There's no reason. And my children, hopefully one day, will not have to compete with the folks that live next to me who are Section 8. And so I'm committed to making sure that the exam schools become more diverse, and that starts by making sure that the entrance exam reflect the BPS curriculum. That starts with making sure that every child in Boston has the opportunity to take the test, to be adequately prepared to that. And I'm committed to investing resources that are making sure that everyone's going to be prepared to take that test as soon as they desire an interest to get involved or to get a pathway to the exam schools. It's something
And
that
will be time. You can finish that sentence if that's okay.
I just want to make it very clear that I want to make these schools as diverse as possible, but we need to start from the very beginning, and we need to put the students in a position to succeed from day one.
Okay, good. Thank you, Candidate John, for that answer. Now we have our candidate Michelle Wu answering the question. You have 90 seconds.
Thank you very much. I know this part of our district very well. As I mentioned, when I raised my sister through middle school and high school, she was able to attend Boston Latin School. And so I know that sense of pride and opportunity that comes to families being able to access this incredible resource within our district. And I also know the sense of anxiety of all the conversations that families go through when you believe that this is the narrow tightrope you have to walk to get access to quality, rigorous, supported opportunities at the high school level in our district. We cannot have it so that there is a high stakes situation that creates some families with access to incredible opportunities and some families with a concentration of lack of resources and disinvestment. I know that having visited every single Boston Public High School, more than 25 high schools in our district, the topic of the exam schools comes up at every single one of them, how the resources are concentrated, and it creates a system where we are having to put together the pieces after students are sorted in 7th grade and in 9th grade. We need to ensure that every single high school seat is high quality, is rigorous, has access to the AP classes and the performing arts and sports that are available at every other school. It needs to be one where there are multiple amazing choices available and not just a narrow tightrope that families have to walk. That starts with ensuring that we are building up, renovating our facilities, creating programming at all of our high schools, and supporting them with the resources that all our communities deserve.
Thank you, candidate. Now following to answer the question is your candidate, Anissa Sabi George.
I'm grateful for the education I received at Boston Tech, which is now the O'Brien School of Math and Science, and for the opportunity my students had at East Boston High School where I taught. If we have put the amount of time and effort in working to improve the experience at all of our schools across the district, instead of just focusing on 3 of them and constantly talking about fixing these 3, we clearly have missed the mark in lifting up all of our schools across the district. Taking away the exam for entrance to Boston Latin School, Boston Latin Academy, and the O'Brien does not fix the disparities across BPS. It only delays getting to the real problems and distracts from the larger conversation around equity in our schools. That real problem is we have let down our Black and brown children in particular long before they ever had the opportunity to take an exam. We need to set our students up for success from the moment they first step into one of our Boston Public Schools classrooms or even in early education. Make no mistake about it, diversity is critical for our schools and critical for our students' success. I am certainly in support of supporting kids throughout all of their years, in particular, focusing on early education, early literacy programs during those early ed years. We need to, and as mayor, I will, reduce systemic barriers and increase access to opportunities to prepare for entrance to our exam schools, but making sure that we are focused on all of our schools and all of our kids across the district.
Time, candidate. Thank you so much. Now our candidate John Barris will be answering the question. You have 90 seconds.
Thank you, Kellen. It's critical that we make this conversation about the quality of education that our children can get to, the quality of educational opportunities, the quality of schools. And so this is about quality seats. And in order to get to quality seats, we do have to make sure that we are thinking about and looking at the exam process and who gets in. Diversity matters. But more importantly is making sure that we have a school system that is increasing quality seats everywhere. That's why we need to start with a seamless birth to career educational pipeline that guarantees accessible, high quality education and trains and supports our learners to build relevant knowledge and acceptable skills. It starts with making sure we have full participation in universal pre-K from 0 to 5 and make sure that we've adopted and can fully fund the mass core curriculum that we just voted on. These are the things that we've got to do. We've got to make sure that it's not just about 3 schools, that it's about 125 schools in BPS and the opportunities to learn before you get to school. For every dollar we invest in our children between the ages of 0 to 5, we will spend $17 in their teenage years doing remedial work. We've got to take this seriously. We can't just have a conversation about the exam schools.
You still have 5 seconds that are going down. I don't know if that's okay. And I think that was time's up. So next is, last but not least, our candidate Andrea Campbell to answer the question. You have 90 seconds to go.
Thank you for the question. I'm a product of Boston Latin School, and I often say, but for the grace of God, in the education I got in BPS, I wouldn't have been successful at a Princeton University. I wouldn't have gotten into a Princeton University coming from the circumstances that I came from. But this issue is near and dear because my twin brother, Andre, didn't go to an exam school. He went to the Burke High School. And at the time, the Burke was not accredited. The teachers, the school leaders were working hard. They did not have the same resources as a Latin school. They did not have the same human capital. They did not have the same partnerships. So these inequities are real. I also have been involved in a lot of conversations around the lack of diversity, mainly at Latin school, less so the O'Brien and less so Latin Academy, and been in some very thoughtful conversations on how we can change that. And I've been in conversations with a whole host of school leaders representing those schools and every other school as well that feeds a pipeline to the exam schools. But for me, I supported the 1-year change. I came out in support of it and said it's the right thing to do. It was unacceptable to expect students to show up to a convention center and take the exam. And what I've been stressing is if we learn anything about equity or diversity, we should all welcome that. But there should be no permanent changes made to our exam schools without going through a robust community process. Yes, there needs to be greater equity, but a lot of families and a lot of neighborhoods were cut out of even being able to engage. Going back to your earlier question of having families engage when we make these very difficult decisions that trigger race. That's my leadership style, not afraid to take on the tough issues, but making sure everyone has a seat at the table and making sure the conversation is bigger than the exam schools. We can make it so every child has a pathway through a high school to the things they want to accomplish for themselves. A classical education does not work for everyone.
Thank you so much. We are done with the questions. Thank you all the candidates for your time and thoughtful responses. I know it was a short time for every one of you, just 90 seconds to answer. And I know you have great ideas and you have more to add to that. But now we want to invite each of you candidates to provide a 2-minute closing statement. And we are going to be following the next order. That will be John Barrows, then Andrea Campbell, then Anissa Sabi George, then John Santiago, and finally Michelle Wu for the closing statements. And you have 2 minutes on the clock.
It's important, and I know personally that I'm not able to succeed or do things in life. Definitely haven't gotten to where I've gotten today by myself. And so as mayor, I in fact will understand and will deeply invest in people's development. This is about ensuring residents' economic security. It's about ensuring our young people have health, wellness, building a city where education and training is available. And the only way you can do that is making sure that our young people are involved, that we understand what they need, and that we are supporting them from birth through a career educational pipeline, and that we are making sure that we're removing barriers and providing resources where resources are needed. It is a school conversation, and education and quality education is at the center of it. But beyond a school conversation, we've got to address the opportunity gaps. Not all young people have the same opportunities in school. Not all our young people have the same opportunities out of school. So we have to continue to work with our CBOs because the programs we are talking about are not going to all be delivered by teachers. Teachers will need to be supported to be excellent in classes. But we need to have partnerships with community-based organizations and nonprofits like the Boston Debate League that does an amazing job continue to help our young people develop their skills. As mayor, we will have a very clear policy on youth development in the city of Boston, alignment with all of our partnerships, monitoring to make sure, in fact, that it's happening, and believe in every child, and therefore creating a quality seat for every child in the city of Boston. And then we will support our children to be ready to learn and be ready to engage, be ready to take advantage of the opportunities that that exist in the city of Boston. That means addressing homelessness. It means addressing trauma. It means addressing insecurity in food and financial instability at home. As mayor, I will make sure that we support our children to be ready to learn, be ready to engage, and be ready to lead. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Up next, we have Andrea Campbell.
Thank you, Kellen, and thank you, Zaira, for moderating this great discussion. And thank you to the Boston Debate League and the Globe for hosting and allowing you to navigate and moderate this conversation, which is really important. I appreciate their intentionality. I jumped into this race back in September when we didn't know, obviously, what our previous mayor was going to do. I never made it about who was in the seat, but I made it about the moment in time we were in. We are talking about the painful murder of George Floyd. We are talking about inequities, particularly health inequities because of COVID, every inequity that you can imagine, because I think we all are feeling and seeing just how deep and debilitating they are. And not just in this country, but right here in the city of Boston. I live in Mattapan with my two beautiful boys. They have a 5% chance of getting into a high quality Boston public school compared to certain downtown neighborhoods where it's 80%. We know the stats around our young people who are not graduating college after leaving Boston public schools. I got into this work after losing my twin brother and really reflecting on the fact that we both graduated from a Boston public high school, but I go off and reach my dreams and accomplish many of them. He instead cycles in and out of the criminal justice system, passing away at such a young age. This system failed him, and it continues to fail thousands of Bostonians to this day. And this is one of the main reasons I jumped into the mayor's race, was because of the inaction and the lack of leadership. As a counselor, I have been leading on education reform and pushing to improve our Boston public schools from the very beginning. I didn't wait to be a candidate for mayor to put out a report, to put in the work on ways in which we could transform this system so it was more equitable for every family. And let me tell you, every family is being failed by it because it's the luck of the lottery. You're lucky if you get a pre-K seat. You're lucky if you get a good elementary school. You're lucky if you get a good high school. Every family is being failed. And so I put out a plan 3 years ago. My recent plan builds upon that. I hope folks will take a look at andreacampbell.org. And I hope to earn your support in this race, and really grateful for the conversation today. And thank you to you ladies for your leadership.
Thank you so much. Up next, we have Anissa Sabi George.
Thank you for hosting this afternoon's event. These are the types of conversations, ones that center youth voices in particular, that will move our city forward. I often say nothing is off the table and we sure everyone is at the table, because I believe in collaboration, and I believe that it's the only way that we get to bold and innovative ideas. And that's how I'll lead as your mayor, because it will take all of us to create a city where the next generation can call it home. We certainly need more affordable housing. We need better transit. We need investments in workforce training. And we need to make sure that that training leads to good jobs. We also need a high quality education school system and immediate action for our climate crisis. To do it right, it's going to take hard work, and I'm ready for that challenge. As your mayor, and as I have been as your city councilor, I will be present and accessible on the ground in all of our neighborhoods to hear firsthand your stories, your struggles, and your successes. And I want to uplift your voices to make sure that it's your experiences that are forming the work and driving the agenda. And then I want to make sure that we bring all of that together and to have tough conversations, but necessary conversations, to better understand each other, to collaborate, and to find real solutions. It's what I've done as your city councilor, and it's what I'll continue to do as your mayor. And certainly I'll bring my experiences to the mayor's office, but more importantly, I want to bring your experience. It will take each and every one of us to create a stronger, more just, more inclusive Boston. And I ask you to join with me to do that hard work on behalf of the city of Boston. Please visit my website, anissaforboston.com. Get involved, get engaged. I hope to have your support, and I hope to have your partnership in doing this work for all of us here in the city of Boston. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Up next, we have John Santiago.
Thank you, Zaira and Kellen, for doing such a wonderful job today moderating this important and this critical forum. I'm grateful for your leadership and for all what you do, not just you, but all the youth who participated in making this come true, because I believe in organizing, and I know the power of youth. Again, my first jobs was organizing youth and working with them hand in hand to get things done. And those lessons stuck with me, and they'll stick with me when we get to City Hall. And again, they taught me more about life and more about organizing than I could have taught them. And those lessons ultimately, inspired me to get involved in public service and to dedicate a life to serving those, particularly those most vulnerable. As a result, I later joined the Army Reserve and was proud to get deployed and serve our country. I became an ER doctor to work with some of the most vulnerable people in this city. And I still do that on the weekends at Boston Medical Center. I mean, the only reason why I got involved in politics, 3 years ago, was because those experiences working in the community and working with youth, that taught me that they deserved representation, they deserved a voice, and they deserve a seat at the table. And that's what I'm committed to doing as the next mayor of Boston. And after this very difficult year, what we just had, these past 15 months where I doubled my hours in the emergency department, I led on Beacon Hill as a part of the COVID leadership committee. I jumped in this mayor's race because I want to bring Boston back stronger than ever. And I want to get us through this crisis, but to recovery, we're rooted in two things: equity and opportunity, but really by lifting all voices, particularly the youth. Because my life has really been about getting things done. And that's what we're going to do as the next mayor of Boston. That's why we have a commitment to make sure that universal pre-K is done, that we're bringing students and parents to the table, that we're providing early college and employment opportunities, that we're finally addressing that COVID loss, which has set students back, unfortunately for too much. And so I'm committed to doing that, and I'm committed to closing that achievement gap by eliminating the opportunity gap. But I want to do that with you at the table. So thank you again for the opportunity to participate. I look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much. Up next, we have Michelle.
Thank you, Zaira. Thank you, Kellen. Thank you to everyone at the Boston Debate League and all the organizers for today's important conversation. I'm really grateful that we had the chance to go back and forth on so many important issues. But I also want to point out that in many ways, the city of Boston has been talking about these issues over and over again for a very long time, election cycle after election cycle. And we know that after a whole lot of energy, resources, often the most that we are aiming for and then getting even less of is incremental change. Now is the moment for Boston to be bold, to do more, and to really lean into the lessons that we can't forget after the pandemic, of the deep systemic issues that have been exacerbated, that were around long before COVID-19. We need to make sure that our response in this moment truly gets at root causes, truly pushes us towards that city that we dream of. I'm proud to have a track record working in City Hall for nearly a decade of knowing how to get that done, of taking on the fights that people said would be impossible to do and building coalitions to deliver that. Whether it was changing the conversation on public transportation, when we spent a summer talking to more than 300 Boston high school students about transportation, realized that the M7 pass and how it was allocated was unfair and causing a huge barrier. And then the next school year, getting that free and accessible to everyone. Whether it was pushing for rents to go down despite taking on a corporation toe to toe, whether it was pushing for our school lunches to have more criteria to reflect local, healthy, tasty, fair wages all along that food supply chain. We can do so much in our city when everyone comes together and has a voice in our future. And so I hope you'll get involved. My website is michelleforboston.com. It has all of our policy plans and ways to volunteer and get involved. And the last thought I'll leave you with is it's time for change. We need to put a Boston Public Schools mom in charge of our city, and we will see that change. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, all of you candidates, for your time today. I know it was late afternoon. I know this temperature is not helping with our mood. I know the time for the answers, it was just 90 seconds is not enough. For the attendees of this forum, I know there were so many questions that we couldn't get just for the sake of time. And, if we get all of those questions, this will take hours. So just thank you so much for all of you, your time, your all of your good expectations for us, the Boston Debate League for giving us the honor to be here talking with you like firsthand, and then the Boston Globe for all this opportunity. I know I was nervous, but it was just so awesome. Just thank you so much. And I know my peer Ira is also so honored, so she's going to give her last and closing speech now. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Ira Mercer. I just want to say thank you to the Boston Globe and BDO for just always being behind youth voices, and to you all as well for being within this youth-led space and wanting to hear the questions that the youth are eager to ask and eager to know more about, especially within their community and their school communities. So thank you again for being here and spending your afternoon with us. And now I'll be introducing Jackney to close us all out.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who joined us this evening, and to every candidate seeking to lead this great city. John Barros, Andrea Campbell, Anissa Sabi George, John Santiago, Michelle Wu, and Kim Janey. Thank you all for joining us. And your attention to this conversation really demonstrates your commitment to engaging and supporting young people and youth voice in the city of Boston. Special thank you to the Boston Globe and the Great Divide team for your partnership on this. And, just a very special thank you to Kellen and Zyra. Thank you for accepting and for leading this conversation. And they really put in some time here to have this conversation with you all and to represent the young people of Boston, and you did that so well. And for those that are participating, thank you for your questions and your comments. And if you would like to learn more about the Boston Debate League and to get updates about our work, please visit us at bostondebate.org. There will be a recording of tonight's event, so please keep a lookout for that, and we'll have information there about ways that you can connect. And please, everyone, have a wonderful evening. Thank you to all the candidates for joining us.
Bye, everyone. Have a nice evening.
Bye.